Welcome to the debut edition of Mick and T's Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. I'm Joe Ticotsky, and this is my co-host, Evan McFarlane. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and Evan is from right here in St. Andrews, and we hope to make this a sports show where we discuss sports, debate sports, maybe even predict a little bit of sports. We'll have a guest interview during the show, and we'll also do some things to keep it lighthearted. But right now, our first segment is called Headlines, and I would think anyone would want to start out with the first headline has to be the Toronto Raptors. For our inaugural episode, they're NBA champions, an unbelievable story and storyline. Evan, why don't you give us some of your thoughts overall and as a Canadian about the championship run?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to say it was a long time coming, but you've had teams a lot longer down in the States. But you look at the Raptors, they came in '95. It was a really rough start. I mean, we won 21 games that year. And it came straight out of the Blue Jays really being in their prime, that Joe Carter era. So Toronto had big expectations. But the fever is real. I mean, Canada kind of just caught on this year, and it took off. And finally, the team brought in some star players. They were like, "All right, let's go for it." And I mean, look at what happened. The whole country was alive. I mean, that whole "We the North" slogan. How real is that? Anywhere you go in Canada, the fever was there. Everybody knows the Raptors.
It was a great story. I mean, they fired Dwayne Casey leading into the year, hired a relatively unknown assistant and Nick Nurse, traded their best player, DeMar DeRozan, for Kawhi.
Which was very controversial when it happened.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about it and saying, is it a good move? Do you take your best player that's been the face of the franchise and just get rid of him? But I guess their thought was, we got to make a run for the title here.
For sure, and bringing Kawhi in, I mean, the load management, like with the training that he went through, just keeping him healthy, and they really had a core of young players that they developed over the last few years that they really believed in, and just bringing that one extra piece in, along with Danny Green, like how good of a locker room and piece is Danny Green when you know the talent that he has and the experience that he has, just to put around those young guys.
Yeah, it was great. Even bringing in Gasol in February, and they really, even in the States, there were a lot of people that got on the Raptors bandwagon. It was just such a healthy kind of sports story. Now, from the flip side, there are people that are going to say, well, Durant was injured and Klay Thompson was injured.
LeBron's in the West.
But I would think that anytime you win a title, there's going to be things that go your way, things that fall in your favor, and things that don't. The Drake massage. What was the deal? What was the deal with that?
It's Drake. Drake is the modern era Spike Lee of Canada. Okay. I mean, this happened back in the Knicks days. You had Spike Lee on the court yelling at Ray Allen. It's the same thing going on again. I just think that now with media, it gets blown up. Maybe he didn't have to be the massage trainer. But I think that him being a part of the team and being the ambassador is huge. You need someone like that just to keep spreading the fever.
Yeah, I think one minor thing, which doesn't get talked about a lot, was the TV ratings. And I sort of felt it was unfair to Canadians that they kept saying it was the lowest rated finals ever. But here in Canada, it was the ratings were just tremendous, and it seems odd that if they're part of the league, that their ratings shouldn't count towards the overall ratings.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's hard to gauge. Obviously when you get that Canadian team in, we are going to lose some of the Southern United States viewers, and that's just a given. But that being said, the numbers in Canada were massive, and you had people that just weren't into the sport before that were finally like, you know what, there's a Canadian team in this. Like, we've been waiting so long for something. Like, we kind of got a little bit of a taste of it when the Jays went on their run a few years ago, and like you had people watching baseball that never really watched baseball before, but just because there's a Canadian team there, they got some interest, and I think that was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and being basketball coaches, both of us, we certainly appreciated that publicity, although I will have to say in the summer I was down on Water Street here in St. Andrews wearing my Raptors We the North t-shirt, and I went into a store, which will remain unnamed, and the older woman there said, I have a question for you. I see all these people wearing these t-shirts with We the North. What does that mean?
Oh, no.
And I just said, I kindly explained, and I was like, how do you not know what it means? But I thought it was an awesome story. And speaking of awesome Canadian sports stories, tennis. Bianca Andreescu from Toronto, Mississauga, wins the U.S. Open title at age 19. And once again, a tremendous story. She beats Serena Williams in straight sets, who was going for her record-tying title. I was looking up some stats on her. Entering the calendar year, she was outside the top 100. Some injuries, some youth, and just another tremendous, and once again, bonanza ratings for up here in Canada.
No, absolutely. And if you look at Serena's career, she is pretty much the cornerstone to development for women's tennis, in my opinion. I mean, her first U.S. Open win, Andreescu wasn't even alive. We're looking that far back. So when you're a young kid, you dream of playing somebody like that. Unfortunately, a few tournaments ago, Serena had to pull out and gave Andreescu the win. You could tell that Andreescu was just biting at the chomp to actually prove, look, I'm ready to be here. I'm ready for this stage. I really want to play you when you're healthy. And I think that's what happened. So there was a lot of stress for Serena there too, just to be one of the oldest females to ever win that tournament. So I think the stress was equal on both sides. But how humble of a response from Andreescu after the win. When do you see somebody immediately walk over and console the person they just defeated before they celebrate? I mean, that's pretty much Canadian in
that's
a bag
what they
right
do.
there.
That's his Canada right there, and it was great. Now, what type of future do you think she has? I mean, in tennis, the list is long of people that were the next thing, and then 5 years later, whether it was injuries, starting a family, different interests, do you think she's could be an all-timer?
I think so, and you brought up a key point. You never know what's going to happen for injuries, but I think if she keeps her injuries to just minor little bumps and bruises along the way, nothing serious, you're going to see her. She's a number one for sure, and for multiple years. She's way ahead of schedule already, and I think that there is a very bright future for that young lady.
That's great. Once again, going back to the TV part of it, unfortunately, I think in the States, it was tough because it's a Saturday afternoon, early September. There's college football, opening of the NFL the next day. Ratings weren't great, but in Canada, they said it had higher ratings than last year's Stanley Cup Finals, which is really, that's what you want to see, and then it sort of spreads the word from there.
Absolutely. I know we had a viewing party with people that really weren't into tennis before, and it's just the same. It's the buzz. There's a Canadian, there's hope for our sport, there's hope for a Canadian athlete to get to the top. And we hunkered down on a Saturday night during the hurricane, and that's what we watched, just hoping the satellite didn't go out.
Right. But that's, like I said, another great story. I mentioned football, and there was the opening of the college and NFL football season. And down in the States and in the parts of Canada where there's a big football following was a huge story that, with the way the news cycle goes so quickly, it's sort of been forgotten already, is the retirement of quarterback Andrew Luck at age 29. Something you don't see for a guy who was pretty much at the top of his game, injury related. Do you see this as something isolated or something that, given the brutality of football, could happen a lot?
I think you're right on your second point. I think that guys are just athletes now. They're bigger, they're stronger, the ground and pound, like they're taking so much more hits nowadays that maybe this could be a continuing trend. I think you're used to seeing, not in the quarterback position. Quarterbacks seem to go forever. Right. I mean, look at Tom Brady. The guy's ancient.
Who?
And still playing. Yeah. But I think this is going to be something we're going to see happen more often. We've got Gronkowski who pulled the pin, and looking at his interviews now and how real it was that we didn't know about. Like the other day, he said, "I think I've had 20 concussions in my career."
Yeah, and I mean, not like I said, football players and athletes in general are notorious for hiding injuries, so they could stay out there because they know if they go to a trainer who's going to say you have to sit the next 3 weeks, and with the concussion protocol and all that, which you want, and they're losing income. Their careers are so short, and like the old timers are famous for giving the old, oh, it's not as tough as it used to be. But the point you made, which is great, is that these guys are so much bigger and faster. It's like car crashes now versus car crashes 40 years ago.
For sure. And the thing that also has changed is how much money guys are getting paid.
Yes.
Like, contracts are just getting ridiculous now at this point, where it's easy for a guy to play 5 or 6 seasons, be like, you know what, I've had enough. Like, this isn't enjoying life anymore. I've got a family started. I've made $80 million. I can probably afford to stop playing.
Yeah, I mean, the days are gone where players are taking second jobs over the off season to work. That's unheard of. All right, let's hit a couple local stories here. The St. Stephen Aces, who were the minor league hockey team down at the Garcelon Civic Center, left and moved to Fredericton.
Right.
Also, the St. John Riptide of the Canadian Basketball League, they're taking a 1-year sabbatical. Two pretty big holes in the local pro sports scene. Let's go with the hockey first. What are your thoughts on the Aces leaving?
I think it's unfortunate. I think they were starting to pick up a little bit of traction. I mean, the fan base was still there. You go around, you still see young kids wearing the Aces hats and shirts. Like, it's going to be a hole that is going to need to be addressed in Charlotte County at some point. We just kind of need that program for especially like the young minor hockey system to look up to. I mean, and that was bringing in 30 students in town too that you were able to get into the area. And I think that it is something that will be looked upon again. The Junior A League's really reliant on sponsorship to keep going. And I think if they can get the appropriate backing, you will see a team back in, but I think we need something.
The facility,
it'll definitely be missed this year.
Yeah, the facility is gorgeous, and for them and the city and the area, that's 30 to 40 nights a year that building's now empty, where you have people using the restaurants and shopping in the area, and that's a hole. With the Riptide, they, along with another team in the league, they're giving them a 1-year sabbatical, which may be to reorganize the financial part of it, but not as big a loss because they have the hockey team up there. But for basketball, which we're always trying to promote along with hockey, not against hockey. And that's sort of a big hole that I thought was a great product. May not have been marketed the best way. They had name changes. Do you see them coming back after a year?
I think it's going to take a little more pen to paper work for the basketball to come back. I think they had a good thing going off the court. It seems they were really good at going into schools, addressing the game, doing clinics for young kids. I think their attendance was a big issue. St. John being an area that maybe just isn't used to that type of sport, they were having a really hard draw. I think it's going to take a lot more grinding for them to pull it off. Maybe this 1 year turns into 2, turns into 3. I like to be optimistic and say, because that is also another great venue that is underutilized in terms of sports other than hockey. I think they do need to get something back. I'm just not sure it's going to be as quick and easy as 1 year.
Right. All right, before we take our first break here, I just want to let people know our shirts here. Evan is the boys basketball coach at Sir James Dunn Academy, does an awesome job there. My shirt, which is a little less self-explanatory, it's a girls AAU basketball club that I've run for over 30 years down in Connecticut. I've made a connection up here about 6 years ago. We run a camp in the summer, and I become great friends with Evan, and that's what the shirts are about, and we decided to give this show a whirl. So we hope you enjoyed our first segment. We'll be back with something a little more lighthearted, the big Canada-U.S. debate, after this break. Welcome back to the debut edition of Mick and T's Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. I'm Joe Ticotsky, and this is my co-host, Evan McFarlane. In the first segment, we went over some headlines. We talked about the Raptors' NBA title, Bianca Andreescu's U.S. Open title, two probably biggest Canadian stories of the year. Andrew Luck's retirement from NFL, along with other NFL players' retirement, what that could mean. And on a local note, we spoke about the loss of the St. Stephen Aces and the one-year sabbatical of the St. John Riptide. Now we're going to go on to something a little more lighthearted. First, when we started this show, we were forever on Facebook, me back home, Evan up here, tossing back and forth names for the show, and we didn't know whether to make it non-sports, sports. I liked poutine and pizza, but he didn't go for that. We were going to try Sorry Not Sorry, figured that would be a good Canadian-U.S. thing, but we settled on this. And I wanted to do something that we call the Big Canada-U.S. debate. So we figured what better way to start off the first debate than a little battle between Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons. Okay. We figure that's a good way to get going, even though officially now they're called Dunkin'. They got rid of the donuts. But just a little background. Tim Hortons was started in 1964 by Tim Horton and Ron Joyce. According to their website, they have almost 5,000 stores in 14 countries. Dunkin' Donuts started in 1950. And they've got about 11,000 stores in 36 different countries. Still confused as why there's no apostrophe on the S of Hortons there, but we can ask an English teacher that. So Evan, why don't you take the side of Tim Horton? What is so good about Tim Hortons?
Well, just the flavor gets me. I love Tim Hortons coffee. I start my day off with one every day. But let's go beyond just the coffee itself and the food. Let's talk about services that these companies provide. Okay. And I think I've got you pretty easily in this debate. If you look at any minor league sports in our area, Tim Hortons jerseys. You got soccer, they run Tim Hortons camps. Every kid gets a Tim Hortons soccer ball. Every kid gets a Tim Hortons jersey. They all get donuts. You go at the end of your practice, you show your soccer ball, you get a Timbit. How great's that? They're starting out soccer, getting kids into this immediately. Cool, soccer, right? They do it to hockey too.
Yeah, so how great is that? Kids who are supposed to be healthy and they're giving donuts to? That's the reward?
Kids need sugar at a young age to keep them going and active.
Okay.
And you're starting these kids off. It's helping get kids into the sport that maybe at times wouldn't be able to for financial reasons. It's a lot of it just involvement is what they want. They want to see as many kids out as possible. They do soccer and hockey huge at young levels. How many teams does Dunkin' sponsor?
Dunkin', they're exploring getting into the youth sports business. But let's go over, you talked about taste.
Right.
Dunkin's got itself a pretty good cup of coffee, even though a lot of people, like for example here right in St. Andrews, there's 2 or 3 local coffee shops that are really good.
Right.
But our debate is between the corporate part of it. The coffee, like I said, is I think it holds a little bit better. I always burn my hand on the Tim Hortons cup. I know
they have the sleeves you put on the cup.
The sleeves. That's another.
And up here in Canada, as you're only here for a few times during the year, it gets really cold up here, and I kind of like that hot cup on my hands to keep my hands warm in the winter.
Okay. Now, how about sort of a corollary to that is the Munchkin versus the Timbit.
Right.
There's that battle. We may have you on that. Coffee, I'll give you that. I've had a lot of Tim Hortons in my visits up here. I'll give them the edge on the coffee. The Munchkins, I think have it on the Timbits.
That's a hard argument for me. I mean, I like my little box of Timbits. My nieces come down. They're like Timbitaholics. There's always a box of Timbits flying around the house. If I were to drive through, like this is just a question because I don't go to Dunkin' Donuts that often, but if I drive through the drive-thru and my dog's in the back seat, do they give my dog a Munchkin?
They will. They give your dog a Munchkin?
Would they?
No, I've never heard of anyone.
If I go through the Tim Hortons drive-thru here, they're so pro animals and pets. Like if my dog's sticking its head out the back window, they're going to flip it a little Timbit.
How about if you have 5 dogs, they give you 5 Timbits?
Yeah.
That could be a scam. That could be a scam to get some free Timbits. Tim Hortons is definitely, I think they've got it over Dunkin' in terms of the I don't say the charity aspect, as Dunkin' does give to charities, but the youth aspect of it, which is really neat. And for them, it makes, sort of customers for life.
Absolutely.
And I notice it is interesting here how the Tim's is sort of on the outskirts of town. If that was that a zoning issue?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then also they're both into food. I don't know if they should have both stuck to coffee and coffee and donuts.
I think they're both on the fly restaurants. I mean, you got to have those amenities. You can't. It's hard to survive on just that one coffee thing, especially like you said in town. There's a couple really good coffee shops in town. Don't want to take anything away from them. They do have great coffee. That's hard to just focus on this capital company coming in and taking over the mom and pop shop. So you have to have those, and especially like you were talking about where it is in town, you can't not pass Tim Hortons in St. Andrews. You have to be able to go buy it. Lots of sandwiches on the fly. The location's great.
Now, do they have they expanded? I know they're in gas stations. Have they expanded into grocery stores yet?
To my knowledge, no.
Yeah, because down in the States, there's Dunkin's in all of your major grocery stores, which is another way for them to sort of bring in the business. And it's also going, believe it or not, Dunkin' really wasn't nationwide until a couple of years ago. It was more of a New England. It started in the good old Commonwealth of Massachusetts and went from there. But we joke about it, but we both appreciate the good cup of coffee in the morning, and you've certainly educated me on a lot of the educational things and charity things that they do, which I'll go down and I'll mention it to the people at Dunkin' Donuts, and they'll just laugh at me. So, but in connected with this, the lighthearted part of it, we have a couple other things that we're going to do in the second half of the show, and we've decided to move it up to the first half. I'm going to give Evan a little bit of a quiz on U.S., maybe things that aren't in Canada that may be in the U.S. He can hit me with one or two. Chowders first. There are three different kinds of chowders: New England,
Right.
Rhode Island, and Manhattan.
Okay.
Do you know the differences between the three?
Rhode Island is one that I'm not familiar with. I know New England is like a cream base.
Yes.
Manhattan is more of a marinara red base.
Very good. Yep, sort of more of a tomato.
So enlighten me on what Rhode Island is.
Rhode Island is
Clams?
a clear chowder.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very good. Rhode Island's just got a lot of bizarre kind of things, like coffee milk and these cold pizzas they serve.
What's your preference?
New England.
Yeah,
I think.
no, that's 100% the way to go.
Yeah, and then the fish chowder up here is also second to none. Manhattan is the least popular of the three. Then there are also local ones based on ethnicities, and certain states may have it. I'm sure in Canada there may be certain chowders in different parts of the country that are different than from the Maritimes. Do you know what a stuffy is?
I do not. I mean, other than the plush toy, that's all I know. But we're going back to me having 4-year-old nieces running around the house and tearing the place apart. So please enlighten me.
It's another Rhode Island thing, and it is a stuffed clam. So it's sort of bread-based with, it's really good. It's the clam shell, and it's stuffed with breading and clam bits in there. And I didn't tell Evan any of this beforehand.
No, I'm coming in blind here.
Yeah, he is coming with this for the first time. Okay, next up, do you know what a hoagie is?
Just a sandwich,
Very
like a
good.
submarine sandwich.
Very good.
But it's made with typically homemade bread, right? Not like a hot dog bun.
Yeah. Yep. In the area it's from is Philadelphia. So if you're go looking for a sub for lunch, they'll have all their hoagie stops and places like that. It's more of a regional type thing. So that was a good one. Okay. Do you know what I'm referring to when I use the saying, can you add a little more moots to it?
Mustard.
I won't even say good guess because that's about as far as you can get. It's mozzarella cheese.
Oh, well,
that goes
man.
on.
How did I miss that?
So it goes on pizza. Like if you'll be ordering just a cheese pizza, you'll say, I'll have a large moots. And in Connecticut, which believe it or not, if you look it up, New Haven is almost considered the capital of pizza for the U.S., the thin crust pizza. And that's what you order. You say, I'll have a large moots with pepperoni. And that's what the mozzarella is.
Okay.
And the last one of our food quiz and I never even really knew this, and there's two ways to use it. The term red gravy.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. We're gonna go bold here and say you cook your meat, and it's kind of like a pan gravy, but you're doing it with a medium rare to rare cooked steak and using the juices out of the meat.
You're wrong, sir.
Man, that was convincing too.
You had me going there. I said maybe I'm wrong. It's marinara sauce for pasta.
Couldn't have been further away.
Yeah, it's more of like an old Italian. I never heard the term, but they always used to say on Sunday, make sure you add the red gravy to it. Although the first time I'd ever gone to New Orleans, I went to a Subway sandwich shop and ordered a meatball sub, and they said, "Do you want gravy on it?" And I said, "Gravy?" And they said, "Yeah, red gravy." And I had never heard of that phrase at all, so I would have failed that one miserably. But you almost sold it there.
Let's ask you a couple questions quickly.
Oh boy! I thought I was gonna take a break and get away from this.
Let's go. Gravy being the topic. What's your take on poutine?
Ooh, poutine. I just saw a sign. I was up in Fredericton for the Harvest Festival, and I saw a sign for something called Hangover Poutine.
Oh, it sounds like Smoke's Poutinery.
Yeah. Seeing that I just had heart surgery, I'm going to say not a big fan anymore, but what used to be, that's the cheese curds. I don't know. It's just the name of it.
The best part.
It's, I guess it is for you guys. Is it sort of like nachos for us in terms of?
Oh, I like a good nacho too.
Okay.
Poutine's in its own class.
It's interesting. I like the places that add on, not just your regular
for sure
gravy, cheese curd kind of stuff. And they've tried it in the U.S. a little bit, and it's always interesting to me what things catch on in one country and just don't catch on in another. But I'll give it a solid B-. But I may not.
Hey, that's a pass.
Okay.
How about, have you ever eaten a full lobster? Cracked it yourself?
Yes.
Okay, good. And
Yeah.
do you know, if I were to cook a lobster in my house, do you know the easy way to tell that it's cooked?
When it stops screaming.
A little bit longer than that. No, you take the antenna and you can lift it up, and if it falls off the antenna, then it's done.
Interesting
There's
stuff.
There's a little trick to like beach fires too. There's a lot of people who do cookouts on the beach.
Okay.
Bonfire, throw your seaweed on the bonfire, put your shellfish and lobsters down, and cover it again with seaweed and make kind of like a steam pack in there.
Interesting.
A lot of people will throw like a raw egg still in shell, and when the egg is hard boiled, then your seafood's done.
That's taking it to another level. That is taken to another level.
Last quick one. You ever kissed a cod?
That is a loaded question, my friend.
We'll say screeched in as a true maritime Canadian.
I have not.
Well, that's next on your bucket list.
What is it?
So you've never heard of screech in?
No.
To become a true maritimer, you do the big saying. You take a shot of dark rum, throw a shot of salt water over your back, and then kiss a cod.
Okay.
And then you're actually...
Patrick, is that okay to say that? Can we go over this stuff on the air? I'd read about, is that big in Newfoundland?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'd read about that somewhere. And then, of course, the donair, which I'll give the stupid American story about the donair. My first time up here, I saw a sign for a donair, and I thought it was a combination of a donut and an eclair. So I'm thinking, like, grab a coffee and a donair before I go to sleep for
Sounds
the night.
like something
and,
Dunkin's would have.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the donair. Are you a fan of the donair?
Not as much as poutine.
Okay, all right, poutine over donair. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have an interview that I taped in the summer with Brandon Sherrod, who comes up every summer with me to work the camp. He's a graduate of Yale University, where he played basketball, is an accomplished singer, and is now playing professionally in Italy. Fascinating guy and a great story. So after the break, we'll let you see the interview with Brandon Sherrod. Welcome back to Mick and JT's Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. I'm Joe Ticotsky, and this is my co-host, Evan McFarlane. We hope you enjoyed the first segment where we touched on an array of headline topics, and then we got a little bit lighthearted and did a little foodie section for you. Coming up next, we have an interview, which I think you guys will really enjoy, with Brandon Sherrod, who's a graduate of Yale University, played 4 years of college basketball there. He's an accomplished singer. He was up in the summer working the camp, and we sat down and chatted with him about a number of topics, and we're going to go to that interview right now. We're with Brandon Sherrod, who's a Yale University graduate from 2016. He was a member of their basketball team, and his senior year, they qualified for the NCAA tournament known as March Madness for the first time in 64 years, so it's quite an accomplishment. They defeated Baylor in the first round of the tournament and then took the vaunted Duke Blue Devils right down to the wire in a loss to them and gave them a run for their money. He also, as an accomplished singer, was in a student group at Yale called the Whiffin' Poofs, which was established in 1909, and they are the oldest a cappella group in the United States, and count among their alumni Cole Porter. And currently Brandon is about to start his 4th year playing professionally in Italy, and we're just going to hit him with a bunch of questions, basketball and non-basketball related. So let's get going with it. Brandon, why do you continue coming to St. Andrews each summer?
Well, for me, ever since the first year, I really enjoyed the atmosphere. It's very relaxed. I like the fact that it's really warm during the day, and at nighttime you get about 60 to 50 degree weather. At least that's Fahrenheit. And on top of that, being able to work with kids is something I really enjoy, and it's a great way to unwind before I get started with the next season.
Tell us what a typical day in Italy is like for you as a professional basketball player.
Well, depending on the time of the week, we usually get up, eat breakfast, and then we're headed to the gym for a lift or shooting with our coaches, and then maybe some days we'll have some basketball-related things as well. After that time, we'll have lunch free and a little bit of afternoon free, and I'll usually use that time to go sightseeing or to go to a restaurant I haven't tried. And then we'll come back later on in the evening to have practice with the full team, going over our sets and trying to prepare for the next week and the next game that we have. Then after that, I'm off to dinner, either at home cooking for myself or with friends, and then I'm off to bed, and we just repeat it over and over again.
Can you tell us some differences between when you played collegiate basketball at Yale versus playing professionally in Italy?
Sure. I mean, at the college level, the Division I level, guys are a lot more athletic. I think overall, Americans have really excelled in being big, strong, and being able to jump higher, move faster laterally. So I did notice a little bit of an athletic difference coming to Italy, but I did also notice that everyone was way more skilled. So from the guards to the big men, everyone can shoot, handle the ball with both hands. They can finish around the basket with both hands, which was something I wasn't used to seeing. So guys weren't really as weak when it came to fundamentals. And also they really thought the game out. If there was a mismatch, they would find the mismatch all the time. And they didn't really turn the ball over quite as much because they knew how to value every possession, which was a little bit different coming from a collegiate setting, and also having a 24-second shot clock in Europe versus a 30, or I guess it was 35-second shot clock in the States.
And what parts of your game as your career progresses would you like to improve upon?
Jump shooting. I think I've really excelled the past couple of years in shooting from the mid-range. And this past season, I really demonstrated that I can hit turnaround jump shots and also shots from the mid-post. And so next year, I'm hoping that I could, show that I can shoot the three as well. And I think that'll be a big thing for me, trying to make more money in the future, but also trying to, elongate my career, because playing in the paint and playing in the post like I usually do isn't really easy for your body. And in Europe, it's also a lot more physical. That's another big difference. Guys are able to put their hands on you, push, and refs aren't as willing to blow the whistle as they are in the United States, at least right now. So trying to expand my game and my range and shooting from the three-point line.
That's great. All right, we have a bunch of things here that for lack of a better term, I just titled either or, where I'm going to hit you with two things, and Brandon does not know what any of these are. I try not to make him trick or anything like that, but it's just, could be two names of people or products, and you just tell me which one you like better.
Okay.
LeBron or Michael Jordan?
LeBron.
Okay. Yankees or Red Sox?
Red Sox. I'm not a Yankees fan.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Okay. Fish or chicken?
Fish.
All right, you're in a great spot
Yeah.
for that. This could be a loaded question.
Okay.
Drake or Jay-Z?
I'm gonna go with Drake.
Okay,
Yeah.
good answer to give in the hometown.
I'm in Canada.
Ooh, this one. Obama or Trump?
Obama. I think that one was a little bit more straightforward, at least for me.
Okay, that one was, yeah. We don't want to get too political here, but we figured I had to touch on that. Your favorite current NBA player?
It has to be between Paul Millsap and Draymond Green. I like how they play.
How about your all-time favorite NBA player?
Karl Malone, no question.
Great. He's a Utah Jazz Hall of Famer, for those of you that may not know who Karl is. Your favorite food?
Salmon. By
Once
far.
again, in the right spot.
If anyone sees this salmon jerky spice box, please bring it back if possible.
We've been looking for it the last couple summers here and can't find it. Your least favorite food out of popular type foods?
Honestly, probably McDonald's or any burger from there.
Well, there's none within an hour of here, so that makes it easy to give that up. Besides basketball, if there's a sport you wish you could play at a high level, what sport would that be?
It'd probably be baseball. Least wear and tear on my body and a lot of longevity. I could play probably till I'm like 35 to 40, depending on what position I'm in. And also, those guys make a ton of money. So I think playing at the top level would be amazing.
And what would you say 10 years from now, if you could peer into the future, which none of us can, what would you like to be doing 10 years from now?
I'll have retired from the game of basketball, at least playing, and I'll have started a couple businesses or sold a couple businesses, so I'll have a little bit of money in my pocket, and then hopefully I'll be preparing for my campaign to run for mayor of Bridgeport, Connecticut, my hometown.
Yep, and that's Brandon's hometown, and he's looking to someday run for mayor. If we can convince you to run for president, feel free to take that on.
Maybe one day we'll see.
But we were thinking sooner rather than later. But well, we're so grateful that Brandon enjoys St. Andrews and Charlotte County so much, and makes this a stop on his summer tour. And we're glad to have him here for a few questions, and hopefully we'll see you back next summer.
Thanks for having me. Yep, looking forward to it.
Welcome back to Mick and JT's Sports Report. We hope you enjoyed the interview with Brandon Sherrod. He was here at the Basketball by the Sea camp in St. Andrews in August, and gave you his thoughts on the area and on his life in general, which is fascinating. We're going to go back to a headlines section before we finish with some local and lighthearted type things. So for NFL, we're going to go back to football a little bit, Evan. The season has started. There's a couple weeks in, depending on when the show is aired, and maybe further along than that. Can anyone stop the Patriots?
I think there's possibilities that it could happen. As we were alluding to with injuries and previous chatter, you never know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think the Pats are heavy favorites, and I'm a little biased because that's my team, but their offense is a powerhouse right now. The names they're bringing in, I mean, we just got Antonio Brown. We've got Josh Gordon kind of straightened out. I mean, if those guys can stay on the straight and narrow, we're fine. That being said, I fear Kansas a little bit.
Yeah, Kansas is their very good team with Patrick, and they are, like I said, those two could be the two top teams in the NFL.
Absolutely. If they were in different sides, that would be the Super Bowl for sure.
Now, do you think there's been a lot of talk in the States, even though I'm right in the Patriots' backyard, I'm sort of in the New York part of New England, so I'm a Giants fan, so basically I have all my Sundays free this fall, because there's no need to sit and watch them. Do you think with the success the Patriots have had, the question comes up, are the Patriots good for football, being a dynasty? Do people say, same team, I'm tuning out?
You hear it all the time. Everybody starts to dislike dynasties at some point. It gets old. That's a tough one. I want to say no. I think it's great because I love winning and I enjoy that. But I think flashing some different teams out there isn't a bad thing for the sport.
Yeah, and when the Patriots first started out, they were sort of had that underdog where people really liked them because they hadn't been around.
It's a long time coming for them. They're having success now, but if you look at their success, it's in the last decade. It's not spread out over time.
Sure.
We've capitalized on the opportunities in front of the team at the moment. When I guess you can't really get mad at guys for doing that.
Another thing I forgot to mention before: Dunkin' Donuts. The day after the Patriots win, you get a free medium coffee.
Oh, that's a lot of coffees to give away for free.
Right. And then one last thing on the NFL. Do you think there will ever be a Canadian team in the NFL? I know Buffalo flirted with it for a while.
I think the market is there, and you look at how strongly Canadians get around a team in any sport. The key would be having early success, because they would start to panic a little bit, I think, if we're a few years in and they're like, why did we do this? We're getting smoked every game. But I think it's a possibility. There's the city centers there to do it, and you could have good rivalries. You could have Toronto against Buffalo. You could have Vancouver, Seattle. That stuff's there.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to some hockey. Will there ever be a Canadian hockey team in the NHL? Okay, we're doing a little NHL, if you want to call it preview, but I'm going to write down what Evan says, and we'll check back at the end of the season. There's something called over-unders for you people that may not know it. It comes out of Las Vegas, where they predict how many points a team is going to get during the year, and then you basically wager on if they'll go under or over that total. So the favorite point-wise, they didn't say to win the cup, but the favorite is the Tampa Bay Lightning at 108.5 points. Do you think they'll go over or under?
108. They'll be over.
Okay.
I think they're going to be very strong. They're a great team.
Oh, under that. And now we'll go to the 7 Canadian teams, and I'll just go from top to bottom based on where they're predicted.
Sure.
You're a Leafs fan, correct?
Huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a Leafs t-shirt, so I guess that makes me a Leafs. It's amazing how...
We've talked about patience, and this is where I've learned mine.
Yeah, yep. It's 52 years since they've won a cup, 1967. You weren't even alive then, were you?
No, not even close.
No, neither was I.
You were like 32?
I'm a New York Knicks fan. They haven't won since ~73, so I feel your pain.
Yeah.
But the Raptors have the Leafs have a pretty loyal following. Mm-hmm. They're predicted at 101.5 points.
A little over. I think that we've got the young guys all locked up. We've got it done in appropriate time fashion, and it's all business now. The team is better than last year.
Okay. I'll put the over for them.
It's going to be them and Tampa duking it out for the East.
Calgary, 96.5 points.
Under.
I'll give it the arrow down for that. Winnipeg Jets, 95.5
Over.
points.
That's a strong team in the West.
Okay. How about the Whalers?
Yeah.
I joke, the Hartford Whalers, which used to be our team, and now they're
massive under.
Now they're the Whaler Canes, the Carolina Hurricanes. They're gone. Vancouver, the Canucks, 90.5.
No, it's under. They're going to have a rough year.
Okay. Give it the arrow down. Another team that's really fallen on hard times championship-wise is the Canadiens. Montreal's been 26 years since they've won. They're predicted at a pretty mediocre 88.5 points for the year. That's
a good line. I wouldn't be shocked to see them right around there. For the sake of the argument, I'm going to say they're going to be a little over that. I think they're going to surprise some people.
Okay.
I got them kind of pegged at like a 4th place in the Eastern Conference.
Okay, great. Got 2 teams left. The Edmonton Oilers are 85.5.
I just don't think it can happen. They got a great captain and a couple secondary guys, but there's not enough there to really do too much damage. Yeah, I think that's a big under.
And Wayne's not walking through that door anytime soon. And then last but certainly not least, your Ottawa Senators, 68.5.
That would be really hard to get under. It'll be close. I'll give them the over.
Okay, so there you have a little bit of NFL talk, some NHL talk, and I've written these down. We'll hold Evan to that and check back later on. When we come back from the break, we're going to finish up with a little local high school sports and some fun stuff that we think you'll like. So we'll be back. Welcome back to Mick and JT's Sports Report. This is our final segment of our debut show here, and we're going to go over some high school differences in sports between the U.S. and Canada. Evan has coached basketball here for how many years now? Will this be for you?
I think this will be my seventh.
Seventh year. He's quite an accomplished golfer. I've coached basketball in the States for about 35 years at various levels, and we're both big fans of high school sports. I wrote down a list of sports that are offered in Canada and up here by season. Fall seems to be the big sports season up here. There's 8 sports: baseball, golf, softball, swimming, cross country, field hockey, football, soccer. We have 6 sports, with swimming and volleyball being only girls in the fall, probably because of differences between what's available. The winter season, when you coach, is a light one, whether it's because of the weather. Up here it's just basketball, hockey, and wrestling.
Right.
We also offer gymnastics, indoor track, and boys swimming. In the spring, up here there is badminton, which is not in the States at all. There's some private schools that offer badminton, or badminton as everyone up here pronounces. Yeah, we have the silent N down where we are. Rugby, which you have here, boys and girls, that's not a high school sport in the States at the high school level. Then you have track and field and volleyball. So a lot are similar, some are weather dependent.
Right.
Now, how do you like coaching a winter sport versus an outdoor sport, if you had the option to?
Well, I mean, the winter sport works great for me. As you said, I do a lot of golf. I currently work at a golf course. Not a lot going on work-wise in the winter, so most of my availability is winter. So it kind of helps me be more committed to the program. Comes with its challenges, for sure. We get our schedule at the start of the year, and it's never the same at the end of the year. We always get a bunch of snowstorms that throw you off. So that makes it tough. But winter is the best time for me, and the kids kind of seem like they have less going on in the winter. I know growing up here, if I didn't play hockey, looking back, I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, because we were on the ice 5 days a week. It kept you busy in a very not busy time in Charlotte County.
Yeah, and also I always say the best thing about basketball is you're in a nice warm gym.
Absolutely.
And it makes the winter a little bit more bearable.
The parents enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah. Some of the advantages, problems of high school sports, we're going to try to get one of the local athletic directors on for one of the future episodes. The big problem that we have down in the States is specialization, where kids are just sort of like with hockey up here, where kids are just now playing basketball year-round, and you have injuries from using the same. Up here I see not a lot of specialization.
Lots
which I think
of multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, which I think is great.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a kid that's really good in one sport that now has to learn to be a role player in another sport.
For sure. And it seems that, especially in this area, the sports don't overlap a ton. There's a few different things going on, but kids don't seem to play those sports at the same time. I mean, there's the availability for kids to start in cross country, do soccer, go into basketball. So it's great for me because my team comes in shape and we kind of just get going immediately.
All right, well, those are some topics that we definitely would like to touch on a little more in depth, because we want to make this show local and of interest to you, and not just always talk about national sports. We're going to finish up with a couple little things that we both thought of. One is a charity spotlight, as we think it's be a good idea to maybe highlight one or two local charities, and I just jotted down 2, and there will be a phone number here, which maybe they can post on the broadcast as a graphic. The St. Andrew's Open Door Food Bank, and their number's 506-927-0000.
Always looking for stuff.
Yep, and especially as you come towards the winter time.
Right.
And then the Volunteer Center of Charlotte County, which also does some similar type things. Their number is, I don't even have to give the area code, 'cause you guys only have one. There's another difference between the U.S. and Canada. 466-4995. So we hope you look into those charities, contact them, and certainly give where you can. All right, next up is something we wanted to do which has nothing to do with sports, a music spotlight. So I just brought up, since I had a nice long ride up here, a couple of the CDs that I listened to that I thought maybe you guys would like to. Yeah, I know, I still went through the streaming stuff. So I'll just go this time with, let's pick out a US and a Canadian. First up is my man, Jason Isbell. He was in a group called the Drive-By Truckers, now he's solo. I just saw him at concert up at Harvest Festival in Fredericton, which Evan had mentioned.
The Jazz and Blues.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And Jason's great, one of your best lyricists of his era.
Absolutely.
And a Canadian man who a lot of people here haven't heard of because he's from BC, Leroy Stagger, great singer-songwriter. You probably haven't heard of him. He's getting big. He's really good. I've seen him a few times in the States and once up here. All right, and now we're going to finish up with something we call shout-outs. Could be a hello or something to
Shout-outs.
Someone back home. Once you start out, what do you have?
Let's do the. I'm going to try to get this guy on at some point.
Okay.
We've always kind of joked about him and I will have a sports show sometime. You watch those shows and wonder, like, how does, like, Stephen A. Anderson have his own show? And,
Right.
And we don't. Riley Cliff, give this a little bit of thought. I think you'd be a good addition to this show at some point, maybe via Skype. But yeah, he's out in Calgary right now. Maybe we can get him to come on for a couple minutes sometime.
That'll be great. I've got a shout out to my college roommate, Mark Aznavourian, who lives out in LA with his wife and daughter, and he's got a podcast out that I got to plug. It's called Cinemondo, Cinemondo, where they feature horror, sci-fi, and strange movies. That's their podcast.
Right on.
And my other California friend, Jay Mizell, he's a doctor out in Santa Cruz. I never get out to California, so I figured I'd give him a shout out.
I guess if I didn't squeeze one in for my man Fleck, who you've worked with a little bit,
he's awesome.
He would probably call me up immediately after this and be like, "Where's my shout out?" So for the sake of saving that phone call conversation, here's your shout out, Fleck. Maybe we'll get you on here sometime too.
And then, of course, I can't forget this because my nieces and nephews back home, James, Matthew, and Tessa. Love you guys. You got some nieces too,
I got some nieces
correct?
too, some 4-year-old nieces, Parker and Adeline. Thank you for bringing that up. I would look like the awful uncle if I didn't put them in there too.
I wasn't putting you on the spot
Thanks.
there, but okay, that should be it. We're pretty much in the books. We hope you enjoyed the first of what we hope is many episodes of Mac and T's Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. We'd like to thank Patrick Watt, the station manager here at CHCO-TV, for giving us this opportunity. Also, executive producer, sound man, engineer,
Jack of all trades.
All-round good guy, David Welch. Thank you very much for putting it all together. And Evan, that was
Thank you,
awesome,
sir.
man.
Good first run.
Hope every you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Ticotsky.
I'm Evan McFarlane.
Thank you very much for watching Mac and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Have a good day.